Hey, it's Steve here with Prima Coffee, and this is what we are brewing. So the coffee that we are brewing is from Pichincha, which is just outside, or it's the area that sort of surrounds Quito, which is the capital of Ecuador. And that's the coffee that we're using. We're gonna grind it about a medium grind, so something that you would do for drip, and maybe a little finer than that you would do for drip. And we're making it on the Bee House dripper. This is the large Bee House. We have two sizes. We have the small and the large, but we are using the large one here, which is still really good for making like 20 grams of coffee, which is what we're going to use. So when you're using the Bee House, you can use either the number 2 or the number 4 Melita filters. We're going to go ahead and use the number 4. The number 2 is just a little bit smaller. It doesn't come out of the top here. It goes a little bit lower than the rim. And the 4 will actually be a little bit larger, but that's the one that we're going to use. It's a little bit better for our purposes. So you fold the edges here. Let's see. And then you just fit it in. The good thing about these filters and using the Bee House is that these filters are ubiquitous. So you can even find these places like your sort of local grocery store. Go ahead and rinse the filter here. The water that we're using is up to 207 degrees. So 20 grams of coffee. We're gonna do a 1:15 ratio. So 20 grams of coffee to 300 grams of water. And so one of the reasons we like the Bee House is it's just really simple, really easy to use. It has 2 holes here at the bottom. You can kind of see here. So it does restrict the flow a little bit. But it is much more forgiving depending on the pour that you have because of its shape. Sort of it is shaped there like a wedge. So you don't actually get to do concentric circles. What you're doing is more like concentric rectangles, but it is a really low bed in there. We're gonna do 3 pours on here. So the first one is just gonna be 50 milliliters or 50 grams to go ahead and saturate all the grounds here. All right. Use a little spoon to make sure it's all incorporated, not stirring too much. It's much harder to spin this as you would like a V60 or a Colito wave because of its shape and the way that it fits here on the server. So I find it much easier just to use a spoon for that. So after 30 seconds here, about right there, we'll go ahead and pour it all the way up to 175. So like I said, the coffee here is from Flat Track out of Austin. And it's a kind of a really interesting shop if you ever get a chance. It's half coffee shop, coffee roaster on one side, and on the other side, get it at 175 there. We'll try to give it a little spin just to make sure it's all incorporated. And on the other side is, it takes the name Flat Track. The other side is a bicycle shop. So they fix bikes, they sell bikes on one side, and the other, it is the coffee roaster, the coffee shop. So we're just gonna let this draw down until we can see the coffee there. And with the Bee House, it's probably going to come in somewhere around 3 minutes, 3.5 minutes with this particular recipe. It's going to depend, of course, on your grinder and how many fines that your grinder produces. All right, so we're going to go for the second pour here. Like I said, we're just trying to get just a little lower than the splash. Not pouring too fast, concentric rectangles if you can. We're going to take it up to 300 here. Right there, 303, that works for me. And we'll try to give it a little spin, but it is a little difficult to get it actually in a circle. And we'll just let that draw down. So like I said before, this is from Pichincha, which is just sort of that area that surrounds their capital in Ecuador. And this coffee is coming in from Red Fox merchants. That's who sourced this coffee for Flat Track. And so one of the cool things about this coffee, so you will notice if you go to buy this coffee on Flat Track's website, and you should, that it costs $24. So it's a little more expensive, but that's just the case with Ecuadorian coffees. The workers are getting paid more for their work. And so that increases the prices all around, including the price for that green coffee. So this is only grown at 1,300 or around 1,300 meters above sea level. So it's not a really high grown coffee. But what you get from this is a really, like I said, really citrusy coffee. It's also really balanced like a black tea side. So if you get your ratios right, and if you get your coffee right, and it's like I said, it's much easier to do on the Bee House, then you're going to get a really well balanced cup of coffee coming from that. So like I said, this recipe should come in around 3 minutes and 30 seconds. We're going to link to this coffee from Pichincha, Ecuador, roasted by Flat Track. We're also going to share this recipe with you. We hope you enjoy.